more exciting to me when you get, a group of people who are like coming up to you and really, really excited about it. And then there are other people who walk out just, literally saying it was the worst movie I've ever seen. Having those two extremes to me is the mark of the type of movie that I want to make. So.
Hey, what's going on, guys? So, Rian Johnson to revisit divisive Last Jedi movie. Okay, so first and foremost, whether you liked Episode 8 or not, or the sequel trilogy or not, let's just keep it civil in the comments, and let's go on to see what this is all about. Because as we know, Rian Johnson hasn't really commented much on the sequel trilogy in a long time, so I wonder what this is going to be about. So this article goes on to say, while Star Wars sequel trilogy saw its fair share of controversy, almost nothing was more divisive than 2017's Episode 8, The Last Jedi, directed by Rian Johnson. With Johnson taking over from J.J. Abrams after Episode 7, The Force Awakens, the second movie in this trilogy incited some of the most heated debates about any Star Wars project to date, both positively and negatively. Even though the movie performed well from a financial standpoint, reception to this movie came in with everything from amazing to an absolute train wreck. While it's unclear if his work on The Last Jedi is to blame, Johnson's planned Star Wars trilogy remains in a state of flux, leading to even more questions from fans about why this movie earned that kind of reception. Right, so remember, he was supposed to get a trilogy of his own, and that's like on hold or it's cancelled, or Abrams even admitted that Star Wars didn't necessarily have a solid plan for the trilogy from the get-go, which takes at least some of the blame off of Johnson for how his work on The Last Jedi turned out. Now, for the first time since it's released, fans... Well, I disagree with that, I don't think. I don't think, regardless of how the overall planning was for the sequel trilogy, I don't think taking Luke in that direction of him being a castrated, just complete opposite being and him trying to kill his nephew was really a proper way of writing the character that we've all been waiting for since the 80s. So, regardless of the planning, I just don't think that was a good move at all. Now, for the first time since its release, fans may be in for some deeper information on what actually happened with the most controversial Star Wars release of the millennium. Rian Johnson teases Last Jedi deep dive. Okay, so on the cover of the latest edition of Empire magazine, the outlet notes that it will feature a story on director Rian Johnson revisiting his work on Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. While no details from the story are confirmed yet, this will be the first time Johnson has taken this deep of a look into his movie since its release in December 2017, while also looking back at the rest of his career to date. Damn, okay, so we're gonna have a lot to talk about, I guess, depending on what he's gonna say, unless he's gonna be like, oh, it was really good. You know, Mark, from Rule of Two, of course, our boy Mark, he interviewed Rian Johnson for several hours, and he said he was like a really nice guy, but he revealed a lot of stuff regarding his experience with Star Wars and The Last Jedi. And so, if you want, you guys can check out that interview, of course, but I imagine that Rian Johnson is going to reiterate a lot of stuff and go into a lot of detail in this magazine. So, in a separate interview with Cinema Blend via IGN, Johnson looked back at how he took the negative reception of The Last Jedi, noting how he would often worry about negative social media posts in the past. In terms of the bad stuff, he says, I'll tell you, it's interesting. That's been one of the really healthy things for me about the last couple of years, is getting exposed to it. Before I made The Last Jedi, I had never had anyone hate me on the internet. If during the course of a year I got one negative tweet, I would go into a panic. I'd be like, oh my god, someone out there doesn't like me, I need to fix this. Well, that's clearly very different than what he thinks today when he was calling people like man babies and stuff like that about his fans, or about people that didn't like the movie. So clearly he wasn't trying to fix anything. Even with the negativity, though, he remains thankful after being able to adjust his way of thinking about how people see him through his work. He's noticed the patterns of how people devote their efforts to trolling and online abuse, but he also loves the great genuine interaction that happens too. Okay, so I, of all people, understand that there are many beings out there on the internet. The internet's an interesting place. You basically get faceless, nameless beings that say whatever comes to their mind, right? So it's like in person in your daily life. Like, you would never say, let's say 90% of the random things that come into your brain, because we all have random thoughts, 70, 90,000 random thoughts a day cross our minds. We just choose the ones that align with our personality and what we want to say in that moment. So, but the internet is completely different. You have a thought and you just literally say it, right? Whether it's like spam or it's little people just being like really mean or really rude, or of course as people, giving great, genuine interactions. So I don't think, and I don't know if this is what they're insinuating, but I don't think anyone who dislikes something is just devoting their efforts to trolling or online abuse. Of course, there are many of those people, and I, of all, know that exists, but I don't think that it's so black and white that, like, well, if you don't like things, then you're automatically... It's like what they say about the sequel trilogy haters, and I don't like that word, but the people who don't like the sequel trilogy, they say they're sexist, or they're misogynist, or they are racist, and I think that is so far from the truth. I'm sure those people exist. I know they exist. I'm on the internet, I see things in comments, I see things all the time for many years now. But I don't think it's so black and white. I think those people will always exist, but it doesn't have anything to do with disliking a movie for very reasonable points, And I don't think it's right to say that everyone is like that just because they dislike the film, or everyone is sexist if they don't like The Last Jedi because it must be because of Rey. It's like, no, I'm sure there are people like that, but it's not all of them, right? So, and I'm speaking for myself, for example. So he goes on to say, the thing is, though, I am really, really thankful because what that meant is that my sense of self-worth was attached to the notion of everybody liking me online. And the fact that this process has made me, out of survival, disconnect from that, it's given me a more realistic view of the system that is social media. There's a lot of great, genuine interaction that goes on. The bad stuff, the systematic trolling, the almost gamified abuse that some people devote their entire online presence to. Honestly, once you've seen enough of it, you see the pattern of it. It just sort of gets boring after a while. Yeah, okay, well, I guess, yeah, things get kind of numb. You just kind of expect it, and you just get used to it at this point. Johnson confirmed that it doesn't affect him whatsoever anymore, as his experience with The Last Jedi made him adjust to social media and tackle it in a healthier way. Well, I don't know if he attacks it in a healthier way. He just kind of, like, ignored stuff, and then he would just, like, kind of lash out and call people man babies and stuff like that. So I don't agree with that. But regardless, I mean, the guy got tons of hate. Tons. And I'm not going to say rightfully so, because I don't think any amount of hate is ever warranted, but I think discourse is warranted when you create something so divisive as The Last Jedi and you destroy a legendary character the way that he did. And I know many people like Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, but I didn't. So from this person's perspective, it was probably the worst decision that he could have made writing-wise for such a legendary character. It doesn't even give me that little negative ping anymore, and I don't think it's even my skin growing tough. It's just I've put in perspective. I realize this is kind of a byproduct of this social Twitter system. There's going to be some degree of people where this is their hobby, basically, so overall I found it made me adjust to social media where I'm seeing it and using it in a healthier way. Well, that's good for him. I'm glad he's been able to ascend, I guess, because of all the discourse. But I think instead of kind of growing numb to it and just being like, oh, this is just a byproduct of social Twitter system, it's like, it's very easy to do that. But if he were to actually, like, I hope that in the interview, what we'll get to see, he'll actually sit down and be like, look, I've listened to a lot of people's concerns, and I can see how they took it this way or that way about Luke. Because that's really the main problem of the movie. The movie was beautiful had great cinematography. The music was beautiful. The directing was fine. But it was the writing. It was the writing of Luke Skywalker and the story overall that was just, in my opinion, horseshit. So it couldn't have been further from what George Lucas had written for Luke's character. And I think that was the main problem. And I hope he sees that. I hope he really just kind of puts his ego away if he has one, which I am sure he does. I'm sure everyone does. And just be like, look, a lot of people were expecting something for like 40 years and almost 40 years, and I didn't give it to them. I completely changed the trajectory of this character, and then I killed him. What, like, how do you expect people not to be? This is like a god to some people, This character is someone who's really helped a lot of people. It's been a pillar of strength for many people in the world. And you just turned him into a bitch, essentially. Into someone who runs away, someone who cowers, someone who's defeated. And in the end of the film, like, he still doesn't go to the planet to fight. Which, funny enough, in episode 9, after being dead, raised a living object, so to speak, an object in the real world. And You know, he raised his X-Wing. Why couldn't he do that in the... Anyways. So I hope he understands and doesn't just kind of thwart things away and just push them under the rug and brandish them all as like people being toxic or people just the Twitter system. It's like, no, dude, it's not the Twitter system. It's like you decided to create something very divisive, and you created something where so many millions of people were looking forwards to. And I think that is the reason, not because it's part of this, the byproduct of this social Twitter system that he says. You know, there was an old clip that I found where he was talking about when he makes movies, he thinks a good movie is one where half of the audience hates the film and half of the audience loves the film. And he wants people to have that sort of divisive reaction.
I would be worried if everybody across the board was like, yeah, that was a good movie. It's much more exciting to me when you get, you know, a group of people who are like coming up to you and really, really excited about it. And then there are other people who walk out just, I mean, literally saying it was the worst movie I've ever seen. Having those two extremes to me is, you know, is the mark of the type of movie that I want to make. So.
And in my opinion, I think that's ridiculous. I don't think you should be making a movie to have some sort of a reaction on the audience. I think you should be making a movie to tell a story the way you want to tell it. Because if we look at it, there were many decisions that were very divisive in The Last Jedi. So, anyways, I guess we'll find out more what he thinks once the article comes out. And best believe I'm going to be talking about it and react to it and everything with you guys. But I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments below. Hope you're having a great day, and as always, be nice to each other. But I encourage communication and to voice your opinions. If you like something, voice it. If you dislike something, voice why. You know, it's really that simple. And I think in today's day and age, we can have civil conversations about things. So have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, remember, the Force will be with you always.